coffee, tea, and rum. One day the tonguing is done, take our leave and go. At a fair in the sun of town, her hair was blonde and this was brown. She made a whaler man come around. I've done a lot of overnight camping on foot, and I've even done a few overnighters in my boats and in a kayak once. But a multi-day trip is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time. And there's a lot of preparation that's involved with a longer trip like that, especially a solo, single-handed sailing trip. I had been watching the forecast very carefully for about a week leading up to the trip, and things were still looking favorable about the time that I was scheduled to set out, so I decided to go ahead with it. A wooden boat is never finished. There's always something else that you can improve or something to maintain. There's a lot of things that I need to get to this year, but for the immediacy of this trip, there were a couple of small modifications that I wanted to make. I have noticed that the stick that I use to adjust the centerboard depth is just unnecessarily long, and I'm actually going to add some lower notches for a little bit higher position adjustment, higher position of the board. The next step was just to do a good vacuum and scrub down to get the inside of the boat nice and clean, because it's just annoying to have bunch of sediment and dirt in the boat. It's just unpleasant, especially when you're going to be using it every day. And yeah, I'm gonna pick up more of that as the trip goes on, but it's just nice to start out with a clean boat. I did my best to keep the camping gear to a minimum because it's a small boat and it's just unpleasant to be traveling crowded with a bunch of stuff that you don't need, so I try to take the bare minimum. The Big Blue Roll is a Thermarest base camp mattress, and it is luxurious. And that's my American Yacht ensign beneath that. And funnily enough, I actually found this flag in the ditch next to the highway. My tent is the long light blue bag there, and that's a Eureka Spitfire that I've had for probably a decade. And my sleeping bag is some kind of old marmot mummy bag, and I've also had it for about a decade as well. This is the bulk of my provisions. I try to stick to foods that are calorie dense and don't have to be prepared and don't have to be refrigerated. Additionally, I also have some turkey sandwiches for the first day and some bacon that's pre-cooked. I find that pre-cooked bacon will tend to keep for a few days, but that does depend on the ambient temperature. I've noticed when camping, I tend to get really hungry and eat a lot more than I normally would because I'm expending a lot of calories. It's best to err on the side of having too much food rather than not having enough. Water is probably the most important thing that I carry, and it's going to be hot, so I need to have a lot of it, and I need to have electrolyte. To start out, I'm carrying 4 gallons of water, plus a couple of canteens, and I'm going to be filling up my canteens out of the larger gallon jugs, and it's good to have no bigger than a gallon jug as a base unit container, because then you can move that weight around the boat to get the boat balanced better if you need to. I have a Sawyer squeeze and a life straw that I can use to filter water if need be, and I expect that I probably will have to filter water at some point during the voyage. I had about an hour drive to get to the launch site, and when I arrived at the ramp, conditions were nice. A little bit overcast, was a cool morning, and there was a breeze, a good breeze, but it was an onshore breeze in somewhat of a confined launch area, so I knew I would have a little bit of work ahead of me dodging the dock and this small dam. As I was in the process of getting the boat rigged, things got a little bit interesting with some other boaters at the ramp, and I would actually end up having to bust out my first aid kit. That incident will be revealed in the next installment, along with the entirety of day 1 of the voyage.